Lately, I've done quite a few videos on the relationship between men and women, how men and women could maybe get along better, communicate more easily. And it all started from when I had the interview with Jason from Archaics, and we were diving in a little bit on why there's not enough female voices in the truther movement. It's really dominated by men. Well, I'm not going into that part of it, but I did have some great comments back. A lot of people tracking me. I did have one comment come back from a gentleman in a very long-term marriage that, just wasn't quite buying into it, about, celebrating, understanding women's emotional side and just really learning how to honor it. And for him, it was a real thorn in his side, and probably in both of their sides. And what it sounded like from just the short comment was that the woman, the wife, was very emotional and came from that space, and he was coming from a very logic and male-driven space of logic and reason and having things set up methodically, and his wife was completely different. Well, I know this. If you happen to listen to this, let me tell you, I understand this pattern very deeply because that's what I was raised in. My mother was this beautiful, emotional creature that, just moved, just act, just did things. She didn't think about stuff in any deep sense. She was just working with different impulses. Where my dad, on the other hand, was a deep thinker, deep ruminator, a worrier, but very logical and very left-brained, and like to create a plan for things and be on that spectrum. My mother was on the other side of the spectrum, and hence their difficulty in ever finding a common place for them to get along. Because as people, I feel like they were just very out of balance within themselves. But that's a little bit of a judgmental term, and I don't want to get into judgment with it, because let me tell you, there's nothing right or nothing wrong if you're in that situation. There's nothing right about you. There's nothing wrong about you. There's nothing right about your partner. There's nothing wrong about them. This is a pattern you are in. And you can see, looking at it, especially from the outside, you can see that one's compensating for the other, right? It's like in the wholeness of the relationship that it's creating a whole, it's creating a balance out of maybe personal imbalances between the two people. So the first thing we have to do is just get out of judging our partner as being the problem, and thinking that if I could just fix that person, that'll fix the relationship. Well, that's never going to happen. I mean, we all know, right, that our reality stems from us. We can't control the things outside of us. The only thing we can control is us. But sometimes when we're in the deep water of things, and relationships can put us really in deep water, right? Really in the thick of intense feelings one way or the other. And, it's so easy at those points to really blame the other person, like you're the culprit. If you weren't so emotional, if you had some emotion, then maybe, we could get along better. You have too much emotion. You're this, you're that. So we have to get out of it. The first thing, if you're in something like this, I got two questions for you. And one is do you want to change? Do you want the relationship to change? And if you do want the relationship to change, if the answer is yes on that, you want something different, then you're going to have to throw that relationship out of balance, right? And the thing that's going to throw it out of balance so it can come into a new place of balance is that you have to change. Are you willing to change? Let me tell you a little story about a big pattern break. And in Archaics, they talk a lot about pattern breaks, and whether you want to call it like a rut in thinking or however you want to frame it, breaking pattern is a really good term. Anyway, so how I broke a big pattern in my life was probably in my mid-30s, and it had to do with me and my father. And there is, without going into a lot of detail, my father was distant. He just emotionally couldn't connect. So I had no sense of like intimacy or closeness or that protection and that fatherly thing that, little girls are supposed to have. Well, I didn't have that. I had a dad that said, you want that, you go out and figure, you make money and you get it for yourself. So he taught me to be very independent, which is good because I said, F you, I'll do just that. And I did. I became independent because of him, which is a great thing. But there's things that were really missing and things I was very angry about in the relationship. And up through my 20s into my early 30s, it was still spilling over. Even though I was doing my work, I hadn't quite gotten to that place yet of being able to handle until one day I did. One day I'd reached the point where I really understood. I really got like, all right, if I want my world to change, I have to change. I really want my relationship with me and my father to change, so I'm going to have to do things differently. So every time I went home to visit, we would do father-daughter lunch. My dad calls darling daughter, DD. We go for lunch. We both think, oh, it's like so like we had romanticized. Dad and daughter going to lunch, how fun. Well, it always ended up in a big old fight. My dad would start talking about why I don't have health insurance, because health insurance always really bothered me, is putting money into that system. I didn't have a lot of extra money at the time, so I didn't do it. Just absolutely enraged my dad. And so there's a few key points, key buttons. And sure enough, every time we'd be talking and having fun, and then boom, he'd go from, and boom, I would react, and then a fight would ensue. Well, this one time, when I decided no more, I'm not doing, that's not what I want. That's not the relationship I want with my father. That's not who I want to be. So I drew a line in the sand and saying that I'm not going to cross that line no matter what. I am not going to react. That was the big thing. I'm not going to react. So here we're sitting there having lunch, and he starts at the things. And I just sat there and I just smiled. I remained neutral. I did not react. Now, it looked like I was staying calm on the outside, but inside I was fighting a holy war. I was doing just this deep battle within me. It's like, oh, I wanted to yell and get back with him. Another side, no, rah, 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 rah. So I'm practically sweating bullets because of the battle within that was happening. But on the outside, I stayed neutral. And what happened, we went through this whole lunch and we never fought. And it was this beautiful thing. And literally, it was the first step on the other side of the line. The rest of our lives, we got along and we became very, very dear friends. But it's because I changed. And it wasn't an easy change, man. It was a battle. There's everything in my being just wanted to back at him. But I didn't. And it's so cute. So as we were leaving the restaurant and we were walking out to the car, my dad put his arm around me for about 2 seconds, because that's about all he could do, is like about 2 seconds, then quickly back. But he's like, wow, daughter, you know what? I think we both really grew up. That was wonderful. And I looked at him, I'm like, yeah, Dad, I think we both really grew up. It was really wonderful. Did not say a thing. He never knew what I went through to change that pattern. Oh my God, I don't even know if I could even do the right words to describe, but just think about in your own life, there's somebody that really pushes your button, if anybody still really does, and just the turmoil that happens inside. Just imagine that of doing your own inner battle with that and not letting that out and not expressing it. Whew, I'm telling you what, it took a lot, but it changed. So I broke pattern within me. I became a different person. And because I became a different person, the whole dynamic between us changed. It never went back to the old one. And that to me is like the most empowering thing, is that your world right now is a balance of all kinds of different factors, with people, with your habits, with your patterns, with your work, whatever it is. Life is always looking to create like a homeostasis, a place of balance. And that even means within an imbalance. You think of life as a mobile and all these different aspects. You have something off kilter, well, then everything else is going to adjust and be kind of off kilter to compensate for that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things within you that are out of balance. But start bringing those in balance, start doing that inner work, and you just watch how that mobile all changes and it balances out into the design that it's supposed to be. You see like Calder and his beautiful giant mobiles, and even like the simplest one you can get from the dime store. that it's, there's just this beautiful point where it's design, the balance in the design. And it's just wonderful. And that's our lives. That's what we're meant to be living. So practically, let's say and I'm going to direct this for men right now because of the comment I had from the certain gentleman, just not sure. He just wasn't buying into that, with his life. And I get it. He's just really in this certain balance point, with his partner, and it's really not working. So I want to give some little practical tips. All right, so you decide, okay, I want it to be different and I'm willing to change. So how do you go about do that? What do you do when you're trying to agree on something to do, whether it's something to do with the house, whether it's how to spend money on this or that, whatever the thing that's like pushing the button. So man, if you've got a very emotional partner, what you do is instead of, first off, you're not going to get in that position of you're wrong, what you're doing, you're out of control emotionally, you got to get out of that. Okay, remember, you're on the same team, and we shouldn't be going to war on the same team, right? We have to work together. So this has to be genuine. You've got to come from a genuine place that I want to change, I want things to work out between us, and I'm willing to do that. So what I suggest is you just find that neutral place, a non-judgmental place, and then listen. Listen to what your partner's saying. I mean, this goes on both sides. Really, really listen, and then ask questions. Because I tell you, underneath all those emotions, there may be some very golden nuggets of truth that if you would consider and you would put those into your logic plan, that plan would be even better. It'd be things that you can't even see or consider because you're all like in this world. Well, there's other things to be seen in the other world, the world that's in touch with different essences, with different parts of life, whether it's the emotions or the energies. Women know that whether she can articulate it or not, that's the data that's coming into her being that's causing maybe an alarm or causing resistance. Talk to her, listen, and really try to find out. I got my little kitty saying hi Nala. Find out what is there. Ask questions. Help her to guide her into seeing and distilling it down so maybe she can understand what it is that's really fueling that alarm or that caution or that worry or whatever's emotions coming up. Work with her on it and use your skill of reasoning and your beautiful left brain skills. Use that to help draw in and pull out the golden nugget of where those emotions are trying to point you. And on the other hand, for women is just, same thing, is find a place of neutrality. He's not wrong in what he's doing. It's just, you're probably feeling discounted and, blah, 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 fill in the blanks. Okay, great, fine, put it aside, become neutral, listen to what they're saying, ask questions if you don't understand it, kind of probe in, find out what's going on and let them explain. And what I find is the more we listen to each other is that we come out to kind of like the sweetheart message. Well, we're both on the same thing. We want the same stuff. Let's say if it's whether or not to buy this big expensive, whatever it is, she's got her things with it, he's got his things. But inside, you both want to be able to afford it. You want it to be the right thing for the family, so there's this common goal together. And how do you get to it? What is the answer to that goal? And that takes really listening and honoring each other's perspectives. So there is a sweetheart message in it all. Now, this is just a little tip, obviously on a video that's going on YouTube, we can't go into in-depth things because really the in-depth stuff has to do with each individual and the couples and getting along. But I hope this kind of points you in the direction of how to break that pattern in your life and knowing that it can be done. And actually, it's really easy to do. You just have to step out of your patterns. You have to be willing to change, and you've got to find a place of neutrality. You can't be listening to your partner and setting them up for, each question to prove your point. That's not the kind of questions I'm talking about, because your partner will smell that a mile away, and it will not break the pattern. The questions have to be genuine. They have to be, heart-based or even mind-based, but a place of neutrality. It's like, I'm curious. So she's really, all these emotions are going on and she wants to make this big decision on something based on that. I'm curious. Let's find out more. Or ladies, my husband, well, he's just like so stuck in the mud and he doesn't want to see another way. Well, let's see, what is it? Let's get curious. What is his real worry with it? What is the real concern? Just probe in until you flesh out all these surface things. You can come into a place like, oh, that's at the core. And I'm willing to bet somewhere in the core there that you're going to find common ground. And for sure, you're going to find something's going to improve with it. You're going to find something that's going to work out because you're going to change. So the old dynamic isn't going to work anymore. It's like I used the analogy in the last video about stepping into the tennis court, and how you play this game. And, the relationship game, the dysfunctional game, the blame game. Both sides are doing it. Well, sometimes you just have to stop that game. You have to get off the court and walk into a new court, and start playing a very different game. And that takes a lot of humbleness. It takes willingness, and it takes determination, because you really you've got to break that pattern. And some of these are very deep, and they take, they take work to do. I mean, that work can be done in one lunch, like I did with my dad. One lunch, 1 hour-long lunch. I broke the pattern, and our lives were we never went back to that. It was always on a place of mutual respect and listening, and just, I don't even think we ever had an argument after that. Maybe a little something, but never a fight. Never after that. It was pattern, broke, done, gone. Anyway, so that's the good news. I look forward to your comments on it. I hope it's helpful. Anyway, so if you enjoy this, if you enjoy listening to the Rebel Crone, or you're just curious, is like, what does a Rebel Crone have to say? Sign up and, subscribe to this channel, and make sure you hit the notification button, and come back and, join me for more discussions. I've got a whole bunch of other videos. Go back, check those out. I do a lot about with fashion too, because adornment is for me, is the enjoyment of my feminine energies, and I love to clothe them in a beautiful way. So, and I know my other lady friends out there, we love that too. And it's just part of, it's just kind of in our nature. And well, I'm going to do a whole other video on that, because there's so much to unpack on that one. Anyways, lots of good things for you here on the Rebel Crone channel. I've got interviews. I keep saying it, but I'm going to have a lot more interviews coming up, because I'm really connecting with a lot of other beautiful women that have a perspective on different things. Next week I have a few on health, which I think is going to be exciting, because we all know that as we start going through our transition, as we start getting into, entering our older years, that there's a lot of biological changes coming, and they can be very difficult to navigate through if you're going in blind, which most of us have gone in blind because nobody wants to talk about it. Well, we're going to talk about it. So join me for those, and that wraps up today. Have a blessed one, and as always, peace in.